Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the DLF Trade Show on the DLF YouTube channel. Russ and Addison are here, keeping it together. Difficult, by like the tiniest of threads knotted together. We don't even have tape or anything. We're barely being held together. Let's just put it this way. The title on the show sheet is Injuries Make Me Sad. Yeah. And injuries make us sad. And that's where we are right now. And like, it's so funny that usually when we say what the title is, you have like an idea of where we're going. But like, injuries make me sad could be so many players right now.
like 30 people that this could be. It's so depressing. It's like, I feel like we say this every year that this year seems especially weird, or it seems especially like injury riddled, but this year feels rough.
And it's multiple every week. It feels like that we lose players for multiple weeks.
Yep.
Like I'm considering us lucky that both DK Metcalf and Jaden Daniels are just week to week. Like,
yeah,
when you feel lucky that you got some players that are just week to week, you know it's been a rough season.
Yep.
Let's start out with the obvious one. Let's start out with Brandon Aiyuk. And this is really funny because I offered something close to this and it got laughed at. So the first trade we have, actually, you know what? Take a step back. Brandon Aiyuk, 26 years old, tears his ACL and MCL. I believe it was both. What are your thoughts on Brandon Aiyuk? Because the thing is, coming into the season, I was super high on him. I really, really liked Aiyuk. I've been a big fan of Aiyuk ever since Purdy took over because it always seemed like they had a very good rapport with each other. Mm-hmm. But whatever happened this offseason. Aiyuk comes in, starts playing, and they never seem to get it together. There was one game where Aiyuk looked decent, but never seemed to get it together, and it was worrying me. So what are your feelings on Aiyuk? First of all, 26 now, tearing multiple ligaments mid-season. Like, just how strongly do you feel about Aiyuk's future value?
I think he's going to dip significantly hard in terms of value for the next 8 to 12 months. And even when I bet he could probably return next year to start the year. Maybe he starts on the pup and then he's back in like week 4 or whatever kind of thing. But I'd bet you he's back probably pretty soon next year. But even when he returns, he might still not get a value bump because then people are going to be concerned about what he's going to look like coming off of the injury. But I mean, I was buying Aiyuk all season long. I saw the dip in production as a means to go out and buy him because he sat out all summer and he needs to get that rapport back with Brock Purdy. They hadn't connected. He was like leading the league in end zone targets for the first like 3 or 4 weeks or something like that. He didn't catch a touchdown. So I was like, there are signs here that Aiyuk is still good, but maybe he's just, he needs to figure some stuff out. Purdy needs to figure stuff out. Now this injury throws another wrench into it, but I would still be buying him because I expect his value is going to drop pretty significantly down to probably like outside the top 35 at the wide receiver position. But I think that he's still young enough and talented enough that when he comes back from it, he should still be good.
So I've decided I don't care about the show sheet. We're going to talk about my leagues. I actually have 2 leagues where I'm competing and I have Brandon Aiyuk. And weirdly enough, both leagues, I was offered Amari Cooper and Blech for Brandon Aiyuk. And that was the best I can get out of it. Mm-hmm. Would you trade Brandon Aiyuk on a competing team? Would you trade Aiyuk for Cooper pretty much straight up?
I don't know if I would do it straight up. I'd probably want something attached to it.
There was one where I asked for Chase Brown, and that got shot down very quickly.
That would have been probably where I go to, because Chase Brown feels like he's worth a second, but I don't know anybody that's actively buying him for a second. So he just kind of is like there.
Like, that was a shot in the dark kind of move. That was just like, let's see how it goes. But like, the best I've gotten thrown at me was Chig Okonkwo.
Gross.
So like I said, nothing. Like, so that's where I'm a little stuck right now. And I haven't moved any, but I have seen a few moved. And what's really funny, the first trade we have on here is 12-team Superflex. It's Brandon Aiyuk, a late first, a late second for Drake London. And what's really funny is I sent Aiyuk and a mid-late second for London and got laughed at. So at least now I see that, at least according to this one trade, it was deserved. So Brandon Aiyuk, a late first and a late second. Brandon Aiyuk, 376. A late first is 228. A late second is 97 for a total of 701. Drake London by himself, 515. So this is a competing team, assuming a competing team that's like, oh man, I need to fill. So they send Aiyuk, a late first and a late. They're probably their first and second for Drake London.
Yep, they were 6-1, second in the league. Because there's one undefeated team in this, and they were second with that 2-1, and everybody else was 5-2 or lower. So it was their first and second with Aiyuk for London.
Now I love seeing London thriving with Kirk Cousins. He's doing really, really well. Do I want to add a first and second to Aiyuk? This makes me think, what can I do with my first by itself and just fill in my lineup? Even though you're getting a 23-year, like you're getting age back.
I'd do it.
It's the first trade, Addison. Why are you?
I would do it. I feel like this was a trade that would have been done before Aiyuk even tore his ACL.
Yeah,
like if you're that hard of a contender, it's your first. And like, I feel like it could have probably started with, hey, I'll give you Aiyuk and a first for London. And they'll be like, oh, well, now that he tore his ACL, you need to add the second round as an extra tax for me getting a player that tore his ACL. So that's probably where that conversation went.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. And I think part of this is me recognizing what Aiyuk's value really is going to be, and also realizing why all my offers are getting rejected. Yeah, the answer is London. Almost regardless of situation, the answer might be London. Well, I guess unless those firsts are early. Seeing as how it's a late first and late second, I think the answer is London.
Yep. Yeah, 100% London.
Okay, cool. Next trade. Oh, man, this is a doozy. Brandon Aiyuk, Chris Godwin, and a late second for Tank Dell and Cooper Kupp. Brandon Aiyuk, 376. Chris Godwin, 287. A 25 second. Late one is 97 for a total of 760. Tank Dell, 279. Cooper Kupp, 231. Caution, Team A is giving up the highest value asset and the most pieces in the deal. This side totaling 510. I wish you were trading these hurt players for two guys that we know are going to score points, but Tank Dell's not scoring points and Cooper Kupp hasn't played yet. Like, I don't get this trade at all.
Yeah, that's like Tank Dell, I think, is the weird part in this one. Godwin for Kupp, I think, makes sense because you're anticipating that Kupp's just going to come back. And I mean, prior to getting hurt, he looked fantastic, and Puka's probably going to be out for another couple weeks. So
his window's open. They open.
Yeah.
Don't do this to me. Don't stop it.
Week
Stop it.
10. So we got like 2 more weeks, maybe. It's probably when Puka's going to come back. But like even with Puka, I still think Kupp's going to do really well.
Oh yeah, of course.
And so moving Godwin for Kupp, I mean, they're like, Kupp is a few years older, but they're both at the point to where you don't really care all that much about the
their
age
value's
difference.
Not going up anymore because of their age. So what's the difference between 28 and 31?
Right. And Godwin just like broke his ankle. So that's probably going to be like a year. That's like, the Tony Pollard injury. That's the Pacheco injury. That is the Mark Andrews injury. That's a much longer injury than people I think of. So Kupp for Godwin makes total sense in my mind. Aiyuk in a second though for Dell, if we're breaking it up this way, that one does not make sense, because if you lost Brandon Aiyuk and you want production back, I don't know why you go to Tank Dell, who's going to get Nico back in a couple of weeks.
And who's not really doing anything now anyway.
I mean, if he caught that touchdown on Sunday, things probably would be a little bit different for him. But I feel like that's the story.
One reception for a touchdown? No.
Hey, that's an extra 6 fantasy points. If you started him, you had a double-digit week. Yes. So with Nico back, your Tank Dell's upside is all long-term. It's all, if they move on from Stephon Diggs and he can go back into the wide receiver 2 role, So if you're already waiting on Tank Dell to return value and gain value more long term, why wouldn't you just wait with Brandon Aiyuk, who has produced more for longer than Dell?
Yeah.
And it's like that is the part of this deal that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why you would go after Tank Dell if you were in a I need points mode.
Value wise, what do you think of Aiyuk and Dell straight up? Just pure value, not really situational.
I'd still take Aiyuk. But they're pretty close. That's probably where Aiyuk is going to fall down into that like Tank Dell wide receiver 30 to 35-ish range.
Okay. Cool. Let's move down to Tank Dell's teammate, the aforementioned Nico Collins, who is how far into the IR? 3 weeks, right?
Is he 2 weeks or 3 weeks? I don't even remember. Time is irrelevant at this point.
Jeremy Baramy, baby. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know. So Nico Collins is very, very good. That's really all we need to say about this. When you don't forget, he destroyed his hamstring because he just outran everybody on the field for a touchdown. Like, he was already hurt and exacerbated that injury by just destroying everybody on the field and catching a touchdown. Like, he's very, very good. So,
all right, he's got 2 weeks. Needs 2 more. Okay. He'll first be eligible for week 11.
Damn, my hopeful heart pushed it a week further. Do you have anything you want to say about Nico before we get into the trade?
Buy low. That's about it. He's fantastic.
All right, let's see. 12-team Superflex. Nico Collins and superstar Drake May for Jamar Chase and Travis Etienne. Nico Collins, 546, which Addison still thinks is too low. Drake May, 301 for a total of 847. Jamar Chase, 812 by himself. Travis Etienne still up at 317 for a total of 1128. There's a lot to talk about in this trade first. We talked about Nico. Drake May looks good. For how bad that team is, he looks good.
They get some rougher defenses coming up here soon. Because Houston's secondary is not all that fantastic, and the Jaguars defense is atrocious.
But also, given what his team is, he's still
yes, that's good.
One of those, he could be going up against Bama and still should be getting destroyed with how bad the rest of that team is, but he's throwing touchdowns. Mm-hmm. Jamar Chase is Jamar Chase. Travis Etienne. Talk to me about Travis Etienne right now.
Can I not? I'm so sad. It makes me so sad.
Is he the RB1 in Jacksonville?
Peterson said he still is, that you don't lose your job due to injury. So I think the one thing that Etienne has is that he can catch passes. Bigsby, I think, is capable of catching passes. He showed it at Auburn. But Etienne is a much better receiver. And so far they haven't used Bigsby as a receiver. And in these kind of negative game script games, we have seen him take a backseat to Etienne's receiving ability and Johnson's receiving ability. So I'm hopeful that Etienne can come back and still be the receiving guy and get 10 to 12 carries. He just probably isn't he feels like
he's not the RB2 from last year anymore.
Yeah, like he's like in the DeAndre Swift or Javonte Williams or Najee Harris range of feels bad.
So this really comes down to, is the difference between Nico and Jamar Chase the difference between Drake May and Travis Etienne, which on the analyzer, I think things need to be adjusted because I think Drake May needs to go up from 300 and Travis Etienne probably needs to go down from 300. And Nico Collins needs to go up from 546, and Jamar Chase is good from where he is. I think this is probably fair. And if I have Jamar Chase and nothing else, I think I like this downgrade. Mm-hmm. I think I'm good with this. If I'm on a rebuilding team and all I have is Jamar Chase and I need to spread that value around, it's risky. Don't get me wrong. Not the Nico part, the Drake May part is still rather risky because you still need to hope that they do something right that isn't bringing in T. Higgins. No. I've decided I want him in Washington because I like Jaden Daniels. I think my answer is the Nico and Drake May side, because I really do firmly believe when all is said and done and healthy, the point per game difference you get between those two wide receivers will be a lot smaller than the points per game between Drake May and Travis Etienne.
Yep.
And you're getting a 22-year-old quarterback.
Yep. Not to mention the dynasty trajectories for Etienne and May are in like two. I mean, they aren't even in like opposite. It's like it's insane the difference between the two right now. That you're just getting a massively ascending asset in Drake May. And I agree with you. Like if Nico had been healthy for the past couple of weeks, I think that him and Jamar Chase would basically be like, I mean, these are both top 5 or 6 dynasty wide receivers. You really, I don't care about the 1 year or year and a half age difference between the two. I mean, as of right now, Nico Collins at least is the wide receiver 1 on his team. Jamar Chase is currently not the wide receiver 1 on his team, at least in terms of targets. But anyway, like Nico Collins and Jamar Chase are almost identical to me, but the difference between Etienne and May is massive. And I think the only reason you're getting this deal done is because Nico's hurt.
Oh, this next trade. What are you doing today? Ugh. Nico Collins and Brian Thomas Jr. for Amon-Ra St. Brown and Cooper Kupp. Nico Collins, 546, Brian Thomas, 379 for a total of 925. ARSB 783 and Cooper Kupp 231 for a total of 1014. I saw somewhere that like the Lions are throwing almost 10 times per game less than last season.
What? Is that true?
I think that's one of those fake numbers where if you take out that one game where Goff threw 55 times, so I think the real number is like 7 less passes per game.
Goff he's throwing 29 pass attempts per game right now, and at 605, that's 35 and a half. So yeah, that's like 6.5 to 7.
And again, this year's being insanely skewed by one game where he threw almost twice his average. That was the point. Someone was trying to accentuate their point by cheating is what it comes down to.
Yeah, take away the Tampa Bay game. He has not thrown for more than 20. He only has one game over 28 pass attempts, and it was 55.
Crazy that. And don't get me wrong, that's why Laporte is doing so terribly. I'm not super worried about St. Brown because he's just that good. He's still getting his targets. Yes. And now with J-Mo missing 2 weeks, you know.
The funny part is that they've scored 26 points or more in 4 out of 6 games.
Well, they're running back.
2 games over 40 points, and Jared Goff is not throwing.
Yeah, their run game is real good.
Yeah.
So Nico Collins and Brian Thomas Jr. for Amon-Ra St. Brown and Cooper Kupp. Like based out of fun and name, I just want Nico and Brian Thomas Jr. I get it. ARSB is clearly the best asset here for me. But again, it comes down to what's the difference between Nico and St. Brown and Thomas and Cooper Kupp. Like you're willing to put Nico on a level with Jamar Chase, which means you're clearly willing to put Nico on a level with St. Brown.
Yep.
In which case, I know that Cooper Kupp has Cooper Kupp inside of him. Brian Thomas Jr. is doing so well. And he's 9 years younger.
Yeah.
Like this to me is very easily the Nico Collins and Brian Thomas Jr. side. Even with those 2 games you're still missing out on.
Yeah, very easily Nico and BTJ. It's you broke it down exactly how I did is the difference between Nico and Amon-Ra is not that big. But the difference between BTJ and Cooper Kupp with a 9-year age difference for the trajectory that BTJ is going on. We haven't even mentioned the Cooper Kupp trade possibility. Like if the Rams had called some teams about trying to trade away Cooper Kupp, I don't know what that necessarily would entail, but like if he got traded to Pittsburgh, oof.
I mean, it's a good spot because there's no one that does what he does there. I mean, that'll destroy my Roman Wilson breakout.
I'm so sorry about your Roman Wilson breakout.
There's still time.
Yeah. Yep. But no, I mean, I'm taking Nico Collins and BTJ. Again, this is another deal that you can only get done because Nico is hurt. So please go out and buy Nico Collins. You have 2 weeks left.
All right, let's see who the third player we got. Okay, we're going back to talking to some Christian McCaffrey. No idea. Do you have any idea? Have you heard even anything lately? I haven't even heard anything lately.
I thought I saw that he's eyeing the beginning of November.
I mean, that's 8 days from now.
well, he's really looking at that November
9 days.
1st date.
Sorry, 31 in October.
Yesterday, there's an article that says Kyle Shanahan hints at the return of Christian McCaffrey. I'd be surprised to get him back this week, but hopefully the bye week will go well and have a much better chance there right after the bye. So that's week 10.
Okay, 2 weeks.
So basically, more or less the beginning of November-ish.
All right. We don't need to talk about Christian McCaffrey. He's just very, very good. And even though Jordan Mason is doing really well, I still just think Christian McCaffrey healthily walks on the field and gets a lion's share of the touches back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even if he's at 75% workload of what he had last year, that's still better than 95% of running backs.
Yeah. So Christian McCaffrey for a mid-first. Christian McCaffrey, 485, mid-first, 370. If I was a gambling man, I would be doing this in every league I'm competing. I'd send my first for every team I have my first. I would send it for Christian McCaffrey.
Okay.
But I'm not a gambling man.
That was very like, you just laid down the law, but so because you're not a gambling man, if I told you right now you're 4-3, you've been kind of skating by, maybe you survived with Kareem Hunt for a couple of weeks, but you're just kind of floating on by, middle of the pack in every single situation. You seem like you win some, but then sometimes your team doesn't really put it all together. You're 4-3. You're in 5th place. Would you send your first round pick for Christian McCaffrey, thinking that he could be the missing link that vaults you not only into the playoffs, but potentially to be in a championship team?
The answer should be yes.
But
I'm a scaredy cat.
Yeah, that's exactly the same way I feel. I've had people ask me about Christian McCaffrey, and I just have no idea how to respond to it. Like, I don't know where his value is. I don't know where to like really draw the line, because you're not buying him for anything less than this. You know, like if you've held on to CMC this long and you're just now starting to sell him before he's starting to play, you're not selling him for less than a first.
For sure.
So it's kind of like, if that's like the buy point, I don't know if that's how I want to use my first, because the ultimate terrifying thing is if CMC comes back, plays a month, and then actually tears an Achilles, he's dead. Like, it's done for Dynasty. He's done. And then you just lost a first. Yeah. So that's the scary part. And that's why I agree with you. I think the answer should be yes, but I've been hard pressed to actually advise people that should be the case.
Well, see, that's why I always word things the way I do. Like, if you are a risk taker, then you do this, because I let them make their own decisions in stuff where I'm too afraid to make a decision for myself. Like, because you know me, I'll always say, do as I say, not as I do anyway, because I do it's really funny. You know, my leagues are named trade addicts, but still every once in a while you get the person's like, oh, I thought this was a trade addicts league. Why is no one trading? And it's just like, people get complacent with their teams. Like, in year 3 of a league, you spent 2 years building your teams the way you wanted. It's a little hard to move things. So that's when I said, I'm like, well, that's why I do dumb things like the outhouse challenges or accept trades I probably don't think are in my best interest, because I want to spur action. Action begets action. Mm-hmm. So I'll always say, do as I say, not as I do. And that's when I will give the specifics of saying, if you're a risk taker, if you're a gambler, if you're a person who plays for upside and isn't afraid of losing out, go and get Christian McCaffrey, because this is so cheap for what Christian McCaffrey can do. Mm-hmm. And if he comes back and he's healthy, there's no reason he's not the Christian McCaffrey of Christian McCaffrey. Mm-hmm. I'll take it. I said that wrong, but it's fine. All right, let's move on to this next one, because it's also very interesting. Christian McCaffrey and a mid-first for Garrett Wilson and a mid-second. Garrett Wilson, another person that it's kind of tough to figure out what to do with right now. Devontae Adams showed up, but Garrett Wilson still got his targets. That was nice.
Yeah, and if he didn't drop the pass that led to an interception, then he probably would still have been doing really well.
Could have gotten more.
Yeah.
So Christian McCaffrey at 485. The first is at 370 for a total of 854. Garrett Wilson at 589, and the second at 128 for a total of 718.
So I looked at the picks. It's a similar situation where that first is a middle of the pack team. It kind of can sway one way or another if they're going to make the playoffs or not. But that second is the current last place, and they're in last place by like a game or two. So that's if it's not 2.01, it's at the very least like a bottom three, or a top 3 second round pick.
Is my bias for wide receivers strong enough to overplay, wanting to move up to the first, but maybe also getting those points? Like, this feels like such a baller competitor's move that you can walk away getting more points for the rest of the season and getting the better pick. And maybe next season too, because Christian McCaffrey, if he's playing, he's playing. I doubt like he's going to retire at the end of the year. So like, man, I want to say my answer is McCaffrey in the first.
Yeah, it's the team getting McCaffrey is the contending team. They're trading away Garrett Wilson. They're trying to hope, I think, that Christian McCaffrey comes back and is Christian McCaffrey, and they were able to upgrade to that. Or not.
I love that. I love, again,
yeah, that's what
could I do it? Probably not. Do I look at that and go, ooh, yes, nice. Yeah, I just did that. So yeah, like, to me, I think the answer here for me is just the Christian McCaffrey side. Again, I don't think I have the fortitude to do it, but I think that's pretty easily the answer for me. Though I want Garrett Wilson to go to another team and be good somewhere.
Yeah. It really does come down to how risk averse or risk taking you are when it comes to buying Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
So like my other question, so we talked about like if you were like a middle of the pack team, you're kind of like on the border of making the playoffs. Do you want to buy Christian McCaffrey for the second half to make the playoffs and then make a championship push? If you are a strong contender, like you are 7-0, 6-1, maybe you're 5-2 right now, but you're in the top 3 team, would you pay your first round pick for CMC at that point? Or is it kind of a similar thing of, you didn't use CMC to get to that point. So do you need CMC, and could you use that first in a different way?
Okay. So there's, again, a few answers to this.
Yep.
The way I play is if I'm a competing team holding my first, I use it when I need it or when I get to the playoffs. There's no trade deadlines in my leagues, but, still when you hit the playoffs is when you're like, all right, let me make that push. Or, usually I hold on to it for weeks when I lose Aiyuk and Evans at the same time, which happened on multiple teams. But I am for that move. If you are, again, the kind of person who's willing to take that risk on McCaffrey, I love it. That is pushing you over the edge. Would I rather wait 2 weeks? Yes. I don't even know if I need to see him play first. I need to know that he's active.
That when is he coming back? We need the timeline for when is he coming back.
I need him off of IR. I need his window opened. I need him. I would love no injury designation on game day.
Yeah. I the first thing that I need to see is beat reporters saying, hey, Christian McCaffrey is on the field. He's doing warm-ups. He's working out on the sideline. Maybe he's not with the team right now, but he's over there, doing a little like shimmy with his, off the side, and CMC's practicing. Because
tendinitis is more, it's a pain tolerance thing. And my guess is he's going to do whatever he can do right now and then just get shot up like crazy before games. And so technically he should be able to do Christian McCaffrey things.
Mm-hmm.
So we would see him on the sideline doing something. And if we can see, give me a video of those ladder drills, those things we always joke about with players coming back from their injuries. Give me a video of him doing ladder drills, of him doing some squats. Give me something, and I would be willing to send my first for Christian McCaffrey to put my team over the edge. But right now, when there's nothing, I can't do it yet. Again, I don't need to see him an active field to be comfortable. I just need to know he's actually coming back.
Yeah. I think there is that, but then I also think that there's a point where if you're a contending team and you are, you're undefeated, you're 6-1, and your running back room is like Kenneth Walker and Joe Mixon and Derrick Henry, like because you bought low on those guys over the season or you bought low beforehand. And you're just kind of like, oh, well, maybe Christian McCaffrey comes in and just then he's my RB1. But if you already have good running backs, they're already producing as RB1s, it's probably not necessary. And I'd probably use that first in a different way. In addition to wanting to wait just to see when does CMC like actually come back,
I mean, let's paint a real picture. Let's talk. It's trade deadline day, and you want to do something with that first. I don't hate sending it for Christian McCaffrey, regardless of your team situation. Assuming you don't have like a max RB start allowed, and that you'll be benching like Joe Mixon. Like,
right?
It has to be very specific, like Addison was painting out before. But also, like, if you can start 5 running backs and you happen to have Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, now you have Christian McCaffrey and Derrick Henry, get all of them if you can start all of them because they're scoring a lot of points.
Yep. Yeah. This is probably going to be something that that will need to be continued to be monitored throughout the remainder of the season, honestly, or even just up to whenever he comes back over the next few weeks.
For sure. But for now, that is the end of the DLF Trade Show on the DLF YouTube channel. Russ Fisher, Dynasty Outhouse, Addison Hayes, @AmazeHayes_. We'll catch you next time.